Hello, this is your host Akhil Navluri, and welcome to the third episode of the One-to-One podcast series. In the second episode, we were completely talking about the phenomenon of jet lag and how well the jet lag phenomenon can be controlled, and we were talking with an expert of that space. But now in this podcast episode, we're going to go a little bit sky high as we're going to talk about material science. And joining me today is one of the most eminent and prominent industry leader of the material science space, Dr. Ed Pope, who happens to be the CEO and founder of the company MATECH, and he's based out of Thousand Oaks, California, USA. So, Dr. Ed, it gives me an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this podcast episode of mine. So, how are you doing, and how are things in Thousand Oaks, California? At the moment.
Very good. Thank you, Akil. I'm very pleased and honored to be part of your podcast. It's very exciting what you're doing, and I'm happy to play a role in it, I hope. Things are great out here in beautiful sunny Southern California. Today it's sunny.
Okay. All right. That's a good. That you have given me a complete picture about about the city that you're based in, and yeah. So I'm really looking forward for this podcast session with you, and talking about material science, which is like a complete interesting thing, or let's say the integral part of the day-to-day things, especially since I come from the tech side, and AI. So AI also plays a kind of a part. I mean, material science plays a kind of a part with AI in this particular thing. So, Dr. Ed, without further ado, let's kick off with our podcast episode. All right. So, Dr. Ed, can you give me a timeline of your journey in the material science and the engineering space?
Yeah, when I was young and I started UCLA as an undergraduate, like so many young people of my generation, I was influenced by the incredible achievements of NASA, inspired by Star Trek and Star Wars and all of the sci-fi of that age, and was passionate about space and the future. And I entered UCLA as an undergraduate in aerospace engineering. I had the good fortune of being recruited into a materials lab by Professor McKenzie, and very quickly I fell in love with material science. And what I realized was that materials science and engineering as a discipline is foundational. It is the supporting structure that enables all the other disciplines to actually work. And so it's indispensable, it's foundational, and it's fundamental. And in aerospace engineering, propulsion materials, heat shields, today, hypersonic nose tips. You look at so many of the issues. I just read a post on LinkedIn discussing the heat shield on Artemis 2 that's they're planning on having an actual human crew on it.
All right.
And some of the controversies about that, and that's a materials problem. Uh, when you talk about AI and all the wonderful things that AI is capable of doing, and we know AI is a part of our future. It's uncertain how all of these different companies and technologies are going to shake out. There will be changes, but AI is without question a part of our future. It's already a part of our daily lives.
Absolutely.
And the tech world thinks about the incredible software, prompts, how to make the AI work
Yeah.
for you. This is all the stuff that you hear about. But how is AI even possible? Why wasn't it possible 60 years ago? Um, Aside from the simple fact that we didn't know as much, um, we didn't have the compute capabilities to make AI possible. But it wasn't like people hadn't thought about it. I mean, AI, people say, goes back to the 50s. It really goes back to the 40s.
40s.
Alan
Oh,
Turing wrote a famous paper on machine learning, and machine learning was the term they used back then
yeah.
for AI and what we call AI today. Like Shakespeare said, would a rose by any other name smell just as sweet? And it
Yeah.
would. So anyway, it goes back to the 40s, but we didn't have compute. Today, we have compute. We have massive compute. I saw a picture of the CEO of NVIDIA holding a small object in his hand, and it looked like basically a hard drive that you would have in your personal computer. It was about this
Yeah.
big,
Hmm.
and it was able to do a teraflop of compute in something that you can hold in your hand and you can plug into your personal computer at home. How is all this possible? Well, the evolution of the integrated circuit, having more and more compute in a smaller space, is why this works. And some of the large AI companies are not very profitable. OpenAI is not profitable, not yet. Some of the smaller companies that have very specific niche applications are profitable, as a company called Beehive.
Hmm.
Some of your listeners may have heard of it. They provide AI-based software marketing solutions. They're already profitable. A number of other companies are
Right.
profitable. They're
Hmm.
providing solutions. So AI is already profitable for some, not so much for others, but none of it would be possible without material science and engineering. The most profitable companies are not the AI companies yet. It's the companies that make the chips, and the one that's
Of course. Yeah.
insanely profitable is NVIDIA. They have a $438 billion market cap. I mean, it's huge. Their profits are off the charts, and they make the chips. NVIDIA wouldn't be able to make the chips if they didn't have extreme UV lithography.
Hmm.
Ah, where do they buy the machines for that? ASML. Actually, that's the company with a $438 billion market cap. They make the machines, and these cost hundreds of millions of dollars each to be able to make the tiny circuitry that enables AI to work. And this comes down to material science and engineering. We have, since the integrated circuit of the discovered in the 1960s, we've basically been in a silicon age. We go through the history of humanity, the Stone Age, the Gold Age, the Silver Age, the Bronze Age, uh, the Iron Age, and all of these ages. And it's interesting how the ages of humanity are defined by materials, mostly metals. Well, one could argue that this is the Silicon Age. And the interconnectivity that we have, I mean, it's great to have all this compute, at these data centers, but
Hmm.
how do we communicate with it? Well, fiber optics. And what's fiber optics? Well, it's silica fibers. And silica is silicon and two oxygen, silicon dioxide,
Yep.
as
Yep.
glass. So once again, there's silicon not only playing a critical role in our ability to compute, but our ability to communicate that compute from point A to point B. So I say we're in a silicon age right now.
Of course.
So material science is foundational and fundamental to all of these amazing things we're doing today. And that's why, as you can tell, I get very excited.
Amazing. That's a beautiful timeline, and that's a beautiful insight on that. Now, Dr. Ed, I would just like to ask you a very, let's say, going back to your time, or let's say a nostalgia kind of a thing for you. You told me that you got this inclination towards material science when you watched the episode of when you saw Star Trek and when you were fascinated by NASA. But talking about Star Trek, do you do you remember that episode that you particularly watched? That actually got you so much inclinated towards the material science space.
Oh, not a specific episode of Star Trek, but in many episodes, they were always having issues with their heat shields.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you look at so many of the sci-fi movies, the heat shields come into play and the
Yeah.
engines come into play.
Of
And
course.
if the propulsion, the power for the Enterprise is the so-called dilithium crystals. And Scotty would say, Captain, the engines can't take any more. We're 100% capacity. They're overheating. And not a very good impersonation of Scotty. But anyway, uh,
Okay.
they were always having overheating problems with the dilithium crystals and issues with the heat shields. Uh, so, materials did play a role in the fictional future of Star Trek. And so it certainly, but in the real, what as someone who fell in love with science and engineering, I was looking at how are we going to colonize the moon? How are we going to go to Mars and back? How are we going to re-enter our atmosphere? And in more modern, context today with SpaceX and Blue Origin and all these others, how do we do it cost effectively? What NASA showed is we could do these things, but we did them at great cost. And if you're going to open space uh, for colonization and expansion, there has to be a commercial justification for doing it.
Indeed.
You have to have that. And of course, we have it with Starlink and satellites in low Earth orbit. But what's the commercial justification for human colonization of the moon? What's the justification? Why, if SpaceX wants to do an IPO, Musk has made a big splash over that. $1.5 trillion IPO, biggest in history. He wants to raise money to go to Mars. And it's like, that sounds great, but okay, once you're there, if I were an investor and I
Hmm.
was interested in buying into this IPO for SpaceX, I would want to know, well, okay, I think the dream is wonderful. Um, you know, as a human being, I'm very interested in that. But as an investor, what's my return on investment? How am I going
Hmm.
to make money?
Exactly.
And I don't see a business case for Martian colonization yet. Now, part where Musk is a very smart, clever guy, the biggest near-term reward for an IPO on SpaceX isn't colonizing Mars. That's what he wants to use a lot of the money for. The biggest justification is Starlink. He wants to make Starlink public. And Starlink is valuable and it does have a near-term return on investment. And that's an awesome thing. So, I mean, I think it could be quite successful because it has that.
Absolutely. That's a beautiful insight, doctorate. Now, doctorate, we were talking about material science, but for my listeners, they would like to, understand, the terminology of material science and engineering in simple words. So, how would you like to, frame it out?
Well, material science and engineering, MSE, the acronym, is put together and it's studied together. It's a major at universities, undergraduate and graduate. And the science part is the fundamental part, the part where we understand how materials behave, microstructure and crystallinity and all of that. But the engineering part is how do we reduce it to practice? On the internet, wonderful thing, of course, you see all these announcements of these fantastical discoveries, a material that does this, a material that does that.
Yeah.
Scientists somewhere, doesn't always say what scientists or who, but have discovered a material that, uh, can bend light or can absorb light better than any other. And all these great things. But you kind of tune that out a lot of times because you say, well, that's nice, but how can I use it? How can I make it? And that's where the engineering, materials engineering comes in. It's,
Mm.
it, material science and engineering as a department is in the School of Engineering and Applied Science. And that's the key term, applied science. How do we apply science to make things and to use them and to commercialize them and to get quality control and all of that good stuff? And that's how you transition materials discoveries into things that we can actually use and rely upon in our everyday lives.
That's that completely gives an idea, and I'm pretty sure the listeners would definitely understand and resonate with this point. Now, doctorate, you told me, like, in our previous conversation, that you started your journey in 1989. So having said that, when you moved into the material science space from university, what was the first use case that you handled in material science?
Well, when I founded MATECH in 1989, I had recruited a client overseas, and we were looking at that time in three areas. Um, uh, how to make quantum wires. Now, this is 36 years ago, 37, really.
37 now,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, now it's 37. Yikes. Anyway, quantum wires. Uh, Also, ceramic superconductors was an area that was of great interest. Sorry about that. And then uh, also high thermal conductivity material for electronic substrates. Oh, yeah. So I started MATECH to take on some of these very exciting, started to take on some of these very exciting uh, areas, and to be able to do things independently. I mean, I had three options back in those days. You could go the university track, you could go into large corporations,
Okay.
you could go into large government labs, and none of these seem very appealing. The fourth option was to start your own company. Now, 37 years
Yeah.
ago, it's not like today. Everybody today starts a company.
Hmm.
The millennials and the Gen Zs are very entrepreneurial today. They're all starting companies. They don't want to work for big institutional companies anymore. In my day, when I was that age, that was very rare. I mean, almost nobody started a company. So I did, and been in business ever since and doing well. And more, recently, I spun off a brand new startup company called Super Carbon Composites Technologies, um, to take a specific technology that I've developed, ultra high density carbon composites,
All right.
and commercialize them for a wide range of aviation, aerospace, defense um, applications.
That's amazing, Doctorate. So that gives me a complete idea on it, and that's a beautiful insight. Now, Doctorate, would you like to talk about your expertise, in high temperature HT and ultra high temperature UHT ceramics, going on with ceramic fibers, ceramic matrix composites for extreme environments, hypersonic TPS, missile propulsions, and again the hot section turbine engine componentry, like to name a few.
Well, those are a lot more than just a few. I could probably talk about half an hour in each one of them and still not even scratch the surface.
Yeah.
But my whole background, particularly the last 25 years, has been developing ultra high temperature materials, composites mainly, uh, to be able to withstand the extreme conditions and requirements needed both in missile propulsion as well as heat shields, hypersonic nose tips, and other applications. And it's not just a case of can we make a material that can withstand these temperatures for some short, finite period of time. Well,
Okay.
yes, we have that. The heat shields on Orion capsule on the Artemis 2, that's a 5000 F material, but it's ablated. It can only survive it one time, and then the heat shield's gone and you have to replace it. Uh, in so many applications today, we're looking for reusability. We're looking at materials that can withstand these extreme temperatures, stagnation pressures, heat flux, um, repeatedly for many times, even hundreds of times. And that this is to make access to space cost effective. We're talking about the new space economy. Well, the economics have to work, and reusability is indispensable. And one of the materials that MATECH developed is ultra high temperature carbon fiber reinforced zirconium oxycarbide, or
Okay.
Z-Rock, as we call it,
Z-Rock.
carbon Z-Rock.
Easier way of
And
saying it.
that's a
Okay.
material that can take 5000 F potentially for hundreds of flights and reentries, like the space shuttle tile can
Oh,
take hundreds of reentries, but that space shuttle tile is temperature limited. You know, it's made out of essentially porous silica glass fused into bricks that are very lightweight, very insulative. But 1800C is about, or 1800F, I should say, is about the limit. So, but carbon Xerox can withstand 5000 F, and we've tested it at national labs uh, and Wright Pat Air Force Base, the Lemmel facility, which is Laser Hardened Materials Evaluation Lab, Lemmel. It's a very high power laser. And we've also at the Arc Heater facility at Arnold Air Force Base. We've tested it at NASA Ames. We've tested it at the Plasmatron X facility, which is a quasi-public private independent testing capability here in the US and others. So it's been very much validated and verified. And that's a material that has great potential for uh, acreage TPS. It's something that Elon Musk and SpaceX, in my opinion, should be really considering. I don't think their tiles are working quite that well. So.
Probably they'll get there very soon, and I'm pretty sure because the information travels very quick. So let's see. Fingers crossed on that. All right. So, Doctor, like, in working in, for MATECH, like you told me that, you talked about all the things in material science that you could, witness a high amount of temperature. Like, according to you, like, what is that material, that could actually witness temperature more than, 5,000, Fahrenheit? Which material did you, experience in such a way?
Well, as I said, I developed carbon Xerox about a decade ago to take on that for initially specific applications that the Missile Defense Agency was interested in. And it's a great material. Uh, Here's an example of a
Oh,
component that I made. It's what's called a strake nose tip. It's on the side of a missile. And this nose
hmm.
tip gets very, very hot. And
Okay.
the conventional material is Inconel, which is a metal alloy, very dense, very heavy. This is extremely lightweight, can take much higher temperature. It's also developed as a propulsion material for solid rocket motors, SRMs. Uh, and so it's a great material uh, for certain applications. But one of the things about material science and engineering is understanding that there's no one size fits all. There's no single material that can solve all your problems. Some
Yeah.
materials are better when applied to these conditions, and other materials are better on these conditions. And most recently, in the last 2 years, I developed a new material, ultra high density carbon-carbon composite, UHDCC. And
Hmm.
I have a patent pending right now, and just launched a few months ago a brand new startup company to raise equity-based financing to commercialize it. Uh, Unlike a lot of the technologies that MATECH has developed, where we use government money, Department of Defense, Department of Energy, National
Hmm.
Science Foundation, and other agencies to fund the R&D, which is wonderful. It's great that our country does this, our government does this, but it's slow, and it's not guaranteed. It's non-dilutive capital, which is a good thing, but it takes a long time. And in the meantime, everybody's talking about it. One of the things about the research community, I liken them when they get together at a conference, you might as well be in a hair salon with a bunch of blue-haired old ladies gossiping. They
Hmm.
talk and they talk and then they talk some more. And so whatever you're doing can get out, and it can also be, other people with deeper pockets can come in and try and exploit it. So what I've done is created supercarbon composites technologies for this latest technology because the market for carbon-carbon is already a huge market. It's used in a lot of things, but one of the biggest areas, which we encounter all the time when we fly on an airplane, are carbon-carbon brakes used in aircraft.
Hmm.
So here's a section of a carbon-carbon brake.
Yeah.
Uh, these materials are, and you can see by looking at the side here, it has a structure. It's a needle punched carbon-carbon preform densified with carbon matrix. And this is a commercial brake section of a commercial brake disc. It has intricate machining to hold the discs. And you have what are called disc assemblies
Hmm.
on the aircraft. You have a bank of these discs with calipers. People know how their disc brake on their car works. You have calipers that clamp on to the rotating, in most cars, it's metal disc. Well, it's carbon-carbon for aviation because this material can take extreme temperature. It also has beautiful wear properties. Um, Wear and tribology is a unique discipline and it's very complex, but carbon-carbon wears really well in this application in terms of smoothness and gripping. Now, as a material, carbon-carbon has a wear rate, and it's pretty high. You only get a limited lifetime out of these things before they have to be removed and refurbished and replaced and so forth. Ultra-high density carbon-carbon, the basis for supercarbon composites technologies, holds the promise of improving the wear resistance by a factor of 3 or more,
All
which
right.
means you can get
Hmm.
3 times or more the life out of the carbon-carbon brakes. And it has implications beyond that. Whereas typical carbon-carbon has a density of 1.7, ultra-high density carbon-carbon by this technology has a density of over 2 and as high as 2.2. So it's much denser. And this also can affect its ablation properties. Carbon-carbon has been used for 50, 60 years for ballistic nose tips in ICBMs, for example. It has a very predictable ablation behavior.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it has a very high ablation rate.
Yeah.
So if you can keep the predictability, which you like, and improve the ablation resistance, which is a weakness, you can get much better nose tips, not only for ballistic missiles, but for hypersonic missiles and other applications. So,
That's an amazing use case, Dr. Ed. Now, Dr. Ed, you were just talking about your startup. I mean, we'll definitely get there. We'll definitely leave the cat out of the bag. But we'll just take a little bit time for that, and we'll head on with the next aspects about our discussion today. Now, Dr. Ed, like, what are the key differences that you have observed with respect to the SME consulting of ceramics to that of the glass?
there really isn't. Glass and ceramics are lumped together. The difference between ceramics and glass is a ceramic is crystalline, often polycrystalline, and a glass is amorphous, which means it has no long range order in its structure. So glass is that's why glass windows you can see through them because there's nothing to scatter light.
Yeah.
And so they can be chemically very similar, uh,
Hmm.
but so there isn't much of a difference. The thing about a glass in how you work with it is a glass is like a thermoplastic polymer. In fact, it is a thermoplastic polymer that melts at a much higher temperature than an organic polymer. So this is why glass blowers can make beautiful vases and other shapes, and can be very artistic with how they work with glass as a medium. Uh, which you can't do that with ceramics. Ceramics have a melting point, so they're either solid or you exceed the melting point and they become a liquid like water. And you don't have that taffy state, that working temperature where you can shape it like a glass, like a thermoplastic. And that's why you can draw glass fibers. Fiberglass as an insulation was developed in probably the 50s and commercialized, and you can do that. You have fiber optics, which are drawn. You draw the fibers off of a preform, a large glass rod, and you draw it into a thin fiber and wind it, and that's your fiber optic, and so forth. Ceramics uh, tend to be, as I said, crystalline. Um, they are shaped through other ways, like slip casting and other forming processes to get you your shape. So, but as a discipline, the glass and ceramics are put in the same categories.
All right. So now I just have a question, and I'm pretty curious to ask you this. Like, since you told, they come under the scheme category, or let's say you can say they are put into the same category. Is there a chance, or let's say a use case, where they are coupled together, like, in the same material or anything like that?
Well, actually, there is.
Okay.
Corning famously developed glass ceramic cooktops and dishware back in the 1950s and 60s, where it's a glass ceramic. It's made as a glass, and
Okay.
then it's carefully crystallized into a glass ceramic, a non-porous glass ceramic. And they made this as a product and still do. You can buy the white ceramic with the little blue flowers on it from Corning even today. And that was a huge innovation back in the 1950s. And because glass ceramics are tough and non-porous, and they make nice cooktops, they make nice uh, dishes and bowls and things you can put in the oven and so forth. Yeah.
That's amazing, and so that really sums up the point, and actually answers my question, and erases my curiosity on this aspect. Now, Dr. Ed, like, what are your roles and responsibilities, of being the CEO and founder of your company, MATECH? And having said that, is there any interesting backstory, that gave you the inclination towards material science? I know one part of the question you have already answered, that it was based on Star Trek and NASA, but is there any deeper aspect to that, to this particular question?
as to going into materials, it's what I realized by my sophomore year as an undergraduate was how fundamental materials is to all of the different disciplines within, engineering, whether it's biomaterials, electronic materials, optical materials, aerospace materials, and so forth. All of it relies upon material science and engineering. So, in a way, if you're in, one way of looking at it is material scientists and engineers are the short order cooks of engineering. In other words, we're the guys you go to when you want to make a material to solve a specific requirement. So we're the guys in the back flipping the burgers.
Got it, got it. Yeah, that's amazing, Dr. Ed. Now, Dr. Ed, now when we talk about, all these raw materials and everything, now I'm keen to ask you this particular question. How do you, procure all these materials? How are you, tied up with? Like, how do you get the materials like?
Oh, wow. Well, for MATECH, we have a network of trusted suppliers and vendors, fabricators, and so forth, testing houses, machine shops, AS9100 certified machine shops, and on and on. So I have a whole network of vendors and suppliers, heavily based in the United States, but also some in Europe
Hmm.
as well, depending upon who my customers are. And so MATECH does procure and make things for customers because it's specialized and it's usually something that's somewhat exotic. Is not typically very cheap. It's not, most things aren't mass produced. When people
Yeah.
come to me, they don't come to me to solve simple problems that you can do a Google search on, or ask Gemini, or somebody to solve. I mean, my consulting fees are $495 an hour. So,
Okay.
right, I'm like a midtown Manhattan lawyer. So, you know, I'm not cheap to solve people's problems because they don't come to me with ordinary problems. They come to me with huge problems, problems that are either extremely difficult, if not impossible to solve, or the market potential is in the billions and billions of dollars. Uh, some of some of the companies I'm currently consulting with are huge names that your viewers would immediately recognize. I've mentioned a couple of them
Hmm.
uh, already, and but I can't say any more about that. But as I said, the material science and engineering is actually indispensable for multi-billion-dollar markets, and even nowadays trillion-dollar markets.
Hmm.
So,
All right. That again adds another question, in my head. So that question I would just like to ask you. So, I mean, how do you track all these materials? Do you have an application in the IT space, where you have some people working in the IT department and, they're helping you out, saying that, hey, Dr. Ed, these are the materials that we have at the moment or anything like that.
you know, I I have a network already. I've been around for, well, too long. I've been around for 37 years since I founded MATECH, and 10 years before that at UCLA. So I know the companies that
Hmm.
make very specialized things. So I don't have I don't have an IT department or
Okay.
a special app for that. Uh,
Yeah. In simple words, it answers my question. Experience, speaks for itself. And, you have a lot of experience in this case. And, you can actually have the eye for it, identifying, this company actually gets the best. And yeah.
yeah, AI is wonderful. I don't want to sound like I'm anti-AI or bashing it, because I'm not. I think it's wonderful. And it has huge impact already on our lives. We're using AI a lot more than most people realize. And what we're going to be doing with it is even more. That said, AI isn't a human being, and it doesn't have wisdom. It doesn't. It just doesn't. One of the biggest problems with LLMs, uh, because it's not a human and it doesn't have actual personal experience.
Hmm.
Pardon the term for your audience, but it doesn't have a bullshit detector. It looks at somebody said this. Okay, that's a reference. Somebody said that. That's a reference. Somebody said this over here. Well, that's a reference. It can't say that's a legitimate reference. That's legitimate. That
Exactly. Yeah.
guy is pulling your leg. That's nonsense. Oh no, it will repackage gibberish and spit it out. Uh, so it doesn't have discernment, and I that concerns me. Nothing's perfect. I mean, I think part of the problem with AI, and particularly those people who are running around hyping it, trying to raise billions of dollars in
Hmm.
investment money, they just promise you everything because that's what they do. They're hucksters, they're salesmen, basically. And why are you going to put tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions into something if you don't think you're going to make absolute trillions? And so they have to basically oversell it, overhype it, exaggerate what it will do and how soon it will do it in order to get the money. So it's unfortunate, but it puts those people in the position of being charlatans, for lack of a better word. Uh,
Hmm.
Nonetheless, AI is going to be a great part of our lives. Just like .com was. We had a .com
Hmm.
bubble. It was terrible. I lived through it. And but that doesn't mean something good didn't come out of it. I mean, .com really was real, and it just was too soon. The technology wasn't ready to give the rapid return on investment that the investors needed. And that's why the bubble burst. It wasn't because the fundamentals weren't there. That's the tragedy of these bubbles. The fundamentals were there. It's just it needed patient money. And VCs are not known for being patient money. So that's why the bubble burst. And uh, but there was real value there, and our lives today are the culmination of all of that .com promises. It just took longer than they promised, but it did happen. And I think AI is similar.
Absolutely. Everything has its turn, Dr. Ed. I mean, now we're seeing the AI thing, and let's say 20 years down the line, or let's say 10 years down the line, we'll have something new one, and everyone has to, deal with that.
Yep.
All right. Now, Dr. Ed, can you give me an insight, on the diamond composite technology and its applications, in the real life scenarios?
Well, diamond composites was a technology I developed quite a long time ago to produce very high thermal conductivity electronic substrate materials. Thermal management is a huge problem. And the problem that existed 20 years ago has only gotten worse. With AI, once again, let's turn back to AI.
Yeah.
You can't talk about anything without talking about AI somehow. AI needs these powerful chips with massive compute capabilities in a small space. Well, that's fine. That generates a lot of heat. The heat can't just stay there or these things will melt. So it has to be dissipated. So thermal management is a huge problem in uh, making AI chips compact. How do you pull all that heat out? And diamond composites were developed for that purpose. And that technology is one that MATECH invented, pioneered, and it's available for license. It's a difficult tech. I'll be honest. The
Hmm.
process by which MATECH was able to make diamond composites needs to be scaled. It's a low MRL. As a TRL, it's pretty good, technology readiness level. As an MRL, manufacturing readiness level, it needs significant investment. The idea behind it is diamond is one of the most thermally conductive materials known to mankind, but it's electrically insulative, which is very important for having heat dissipation in electronics and microelectronics. So anyway,
Yep.
that's the history behind that.
So when when you just created the diamond composite, so where exactly you were eyeing for the diamonds? Where was it in the region of Africa or somewhere in the US? Like which part of the world did you head for?
Well, diamonds obviously are mined.
Yep.
Um, Mostly what's mined is for the purposes of jewelry, wedding rings, engagement rings, and other things. Some mined diamond is ground down into diamond particles, which is used in industrial applications for grinding and tool bits and machine shops. And how do you take a very hard ceramic material and machine it? Well, you use diamond tool bits. So, uh, 60, 70 years ago, in fact, I think it was GE Labs might have been the one that pioneered this, but industrial diamond was created. So you can manufacture your own diamond as particulates, and it's a difficult process. It was, but you could get particles that were, you know, less expensive than natural diamond. Natural diamond is higher quality than the commercial industrial diamonds, but uh, it costs 5 times as much, or at least it did. But mostly we use industrial because it's more cost effective. And
Got
today, single crystal diamonds as gemstones, there's a process that's, I believe the largest manufacturer is in India.
it.
There's
Coincidental.
a venture capitalist or entrepreneur who came up with this, and he's one of the, as I read about him not too long ago, he's one of the wealthiest people in India now.
Hmm.
So
And he goes by the name of?
I can't remember. I'm terrible
Okay.
with names.
Okay. No, no worries. No worries.
Terrible with names.
Probably I might get the name of him, but I don't know. My mind is not buzzing with
Well,
some
I mean,
options probably.
it's an interesting thing. I mean, what he's done is he's flooded the market with beautiful, high quality gemstones, and
Hmm.
it's pushing down the price of natural mined diamonds. So it's having a big impact on companies like De Beers. It's transforming the landscape of the diamond market for jewelry and other applications because the quality of the synthetic, they call them lab-grown diamonds, are spectacular, and they can be made at lower cost than mining diamonds. And so it's having a big impact. It's very disruptive right now. The diamond world is changing.
Absolutely.
So,
All right. That's a beautiful insight on that, Dr. Ed. Now, Dr. Ed, what is your take on the importance of the carbon brake discs that are a vital part for the aviation industry across the world?
well, carbon discs are a mature industry. This is what is used in all the major commercial aircraft that you and I and your audience, when we get on a plane, and most people don't know this, but this type of material is what's used to stop the plane because the plane does 3 things. You have an engine or
Mhm.
engines to make it go. You've
Okay.
got wings to make it fly. But when you get back down on the ground, you need to stop. And the brakes are what make the plane stop. And,
Hmm.
the aircraft is a massive object. So when it lands, if it didn't have a braking system, it would take forever to stop this thing. So the brakes are critical and they heat up, they get very hot and they wear. In aviation, to make it cost effective, Why can the airlines sell you a round trip to Las Vegas for $150? Well, it's because they manage their costs.
Hmm.
That's the big thing. They demand engines that are highly fuel efficient. They want lightweight materials in the newest aircraft, once again, to extend fuel efficiency. Uh, they want lower costs whenever they can get it. They also want, for every aspect of the plane, the fuselage, the engines, the brakes, any other components, electronics, they want time on wing. How long can these parts be on the aircraft without having to be refurbished, maintained, replaced, and so forth? And it's very important, time on wing. So if you can take a part that has, say, a 2,000 hour time on wing and make it a 6,000 or 8,000 hour time on wing, you've cut maintenance costs. You've cut downtime, because it's another aspect. Whenever the aircraft is on the ground for maintenance, refurbishment, and so forth,
Okay.
it's costing money, it isn't making money. As an asset, that aircraft is only making money when it's flying passengers or cargo, depending on what its role is. But it only makes money when it's flying paying customers. When it's on the ground for overhaul, for refurbishment, all it's doing is costing the airline a lot of money, which gets reflected in ticket prices and the cost of operations.
Exactly.
So one of the great things about supercarbon composites technologies is it promises to make these parts last much longer. Now, the carbon-carbon world, carbon-carbon industry, right now is about $20 billion per year.
Oh.
Right. The thing that why this is so exciting for investors. It's an existing market. A lot of times you have a new technology comes along, it's gee whiz and it's great, but the market doesn't exist. So you got to not only sell the technology, you got to sell the market. You've got to convince the customers. There's no convincing here. Carbon-carbon composites are mature in aviation, in hypersonics, in semiconductor processing applications. Believe it or not, these materials are used in making the very same chips that power AI.
Hmm.
Wait a minute, we've come full circle yet again. I can't
Exactly.
talk about anything without talking about AI, can I?
Yes.
Material science is very critical to the AI revolution we're experiencing today, more
Nice.
than a lot of people know. But anyway, it's a $20 billion industry today. It can be a $100 billion industry by 2035,
Okay.
because not only can it grow,
Hmm.
it can expand into areas where we would like to use carbon-carbon, but the current carbon-carbon isn't quite good enough. But super carbon-carbon, that's what we like to call it, ultra-high density carbon-carbon, is good enough and has much more longevity, ablation resistance, wear resistance, durability, corrosion resistance, and so forth. Because that's another problem with these materials. They're porous right now. The brake discs on the planes you and I fly on are porous. When they de-ice the aircraft in cold climates, like right now in many parts of the country, what happens is the alkali metals from the de-icing get into the material and
Hmm.
they cause catalytic oxidation, which is a corrosion process. So these
Oh,
deteriorate.
got it.
If you have ultra high density carbon-carbon, non-porous carbon-carbon,
Hmm.
the alkali metals from the de-icing can't get into the material.
Okay.
Ah, that solves a big problem for the airlines.
Now talking about both these things, like let's say that is made up of porous and non-porous. Which material do you think the aviation industry is currently producing on a larger scale? Like, is it the former or is it the latter?
Well, they're not producing ultra high density carbon-carbon. That's a brand new technology capability that I
Ah,
invented. I'm the inventor on this technology.
okay.
It's I filed the patent, the original patent 2 years ago, and the non-provisional patent a little over a year ago. Is a brand new technology. So all the mature aviation industry companies have is the carbon-carbon that's been around for decades. The new non-porous ultra-high density carbon-carbon is a brand new material and technology uh, that addresses already proven existing markets that have a need for it.
Yep.
It's very important you have a need for something, and the need is definitely there.
Absolutely. So I think, Dr. Ed, if you don't mind, I would just like to, take this moment to behold you because, you have invented this. And I think, for our listeners, I think, Dr. Ed, you actually deserve a bow for this, seriously.
Thank you. Thank you. Very kind.
That's an interesting thing to know about doctorate. Now, doctorate, in your journey, are there any interesting anecdotes and success stories that you've experienced and that you would like to share with our listeners around the world?
Well, material science has certainly afforded me some very unusual and exciting collaborations. Uh, some of them I can talk about, some of them I can't.
Okay,
But excuse me.
are you all right?
Um, yeah, I'm fine. I've actually traveled all over the world, in my profession, speaking in places like Brazil and Beijing. I, in 1995, I actually visited Beijing. Uh, as a young guy, I was awarded the International Glass Science Award. You were asking
Hmm.
about glass. Well,
Yep.
I started in glass more than ceramics. My professor was world renowned in glass, and I received the Voldemar Weil International Glass Science Award, which is awarded to a professional under 40 every 3 years. It's once every 3 years. And it's held in conjunction with the International Congress on Glass. And I was selected as the 1995 recipient. And that year, that conference was held in Beijing. And so I was invited to attend and so forth. And that was great. At the same time, I had a startup company called Solgene Therapeutics in cell therapy and biotech drug delivery. I was able to raise some money for that and so forth. Um, and I had the opportunity to also speak at a conference on pharmaceuticals from natural products, also held in Beijing
Okay.
the same week.
Okay.
So I now Beijing's a big city. If you've ever been there, it's really big. Well, the venues for these conferences were on the opposite sides of the city. So I was going back and forth
Okay.
from one to the other. And I stayed at the hotel, the World Trade Center complex for the pharmaceutical conference. That's where I stayed. Anyway, it was a lot of fun. It was very exciting, bouncing back and forth. But it allowed me to rub shoulders with the uh, uh, Thailand's princess who had a PhD from Oxford in England and had a Chula-born Institute looking at pharmaceuticals from natural products and was a speaker. So I was on the same stage speaking as the Princess of Thailand. So that was fun, uh, very exciting. At the other conference, when I received the award uh, for the Boulder Vile Award, which is somewhere on my wall. Oh, there it is. I don't know if you can see it.
Oh, wow. October
Yeah.
9th. Okay, 1995.
Yeah. Well, one of the when I received this award in Beijing, it was in a huge auditorium, and a one of the deputy ministers in trade and economics from the People's Republic of China presented me with this. It's a 19th century vase. It came from China's museum, and they gave me this. It's as a glass scientist, because this is glass, is a very beautiful thing, and
Yeah,
so that was part of the
it actually is really beautiful.
yeah. So it's I've had some interesting experiences. That conference, I met high government officials. I gave a speech, and that was on national TV in China. Of course, I doubt they could understand me, but okay.
That's a beautiful achievement. Amazing.
Yeah.
Those are amazing anecdotes, Dr. Ed. Now, Dr. Ed, the million dollar question to you. You were just talking about, your new startup. But now, to leave the cat out of the bag, I'm pretty much keen to ask you this. Like, can you give me an insight, into your new startup and also coming up with a website for that? Like, what went with it?
Well, websites, yeah, I everybody has to have a website, and you start a new company, you need a company website. So I just went ahead and I built one. I didn't hire any young kids. I didn't hire any specific software. They're not hard to do, and people make such a fuss out of how hard it is to launch a website. Well, not really.
Yeah.
Now, I guess if you want a lot of extra unnecessary bells and whistles, that can cost you money. I don't know what value that adds. I mean, a website's really there for information and for, you know, a utilitarian objective. It's nice that it looks good. That's great, but that's flash over substance. So yeah, I did it myself. I'm I've been around. When I first learned of computers was in the late 70s and in
Hmm.
high school, and the very first small desktop computers, and they did almost nothing by anybody's standards, today's standards especially. First computer science course I took was Fortran. I learned how to program a huge Unix machine in Fortran using key punch cards. These are these cardboard cards each card is a line of code.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
imagine you have 1,000 lines of code in your program. Well, that means you have 1,000 pieces of cardboard, and each cardboard has to be in the appropriate order.
Yeah.
One of the saddest sights I saw as a grad student was carrying a huge box full of all of these cards for this huge program that he had written. And he was climbing up the steps in front of the engineering 2 building and tripped. And the box and the cards went flying.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I mean, he didn't hurt himself, of course, physically. Thank God. I mean, he was fine physically, young guy. Uh, but he was really upset and crying, and I was crying for him because you have to organize all those cards again in the
Hmm.
proper sequence before you can run the program. And if any line of code is out of order, it won't work. And in those days, the program didn't tell you what was wrong. It just ran or it failed to run. And you got thousands of lines of code. Well, anyway, Fortran is not forgiving in that sense. Uh,
Hmm.
but so I've been through the very beginnings of all of this, And I remember, one of the first social media websites for just network, meeting people was called MySpace. I don't know if you remember MySpace. It's a predecessor of Facebook and the
Oh,
others.
really?
Yeah, it's called MySpace. It
Hmm.
used to be called, and
Okay.
it was a big deal 20 some odd years ago. Now, what was cool is you had a profile like you do on Facebook and all these others. Everything you have a profile. The
Yeah.
MySpace profile let you get inside of it. You could use HTML to change the look of your profile.
Okay.
Font sizes. You could put music in it. You could have a jukebox that played your favorite tunes on MySpace and movies and stuff. Now, this is 20 some odd years ago. But to get all these capabilities, you needed to know HTML. So I bought a book called HTML for Dummies.
Okay.
It was 380 pages thick. When you buy these books blank for dummies and they're yellow and orange and they're like a thin book, HTML for Dummies was 380 pages thick. Anyway, I had that next to me. I learned HTML, lots of it on my own. So, long story short, to launch a website it wasn't that hard. So,
Amazing. That's a good take on that. Now, Dr. Ed, you told me that you have traveled the world. So, I mean, didn't one of your travels, give you an opportunity to, to come to India and experience one part of the material science here?
I haven't been to India.
Okay.
It's a country I've read a lot about. My aunt lived for 20 years in
Hmm.
India, a long, long time ago. And I've known so many friends and colleagues from there, but I've never been to India yet. Yet, yet.
In the bucket list. If you ever come to Hyderabad, I'll take you around for sure.
Oh, I would love to. I will absolutely take you up on that.
Surely. That, so when you come to India, like what is there in your bucket list, that part of material science that you would like to, explore? Like which one is the thing that's actually, ticking you to come?
In India, well, I am very curious to see how material science in India is advancing. India is doing some amazing things in space and launching satellites and the probe that landed on the moon just last year, I believe it was, that landed on the dark side of the moon
Yeah.
and was able to gather some very exciting data that had never been gathered before. So I'm interested to see how uh, materials are evolving and developing in India because it has to be developing somewhat organically because in the United States we have these things called ITAR and CUI, uh, controlled unclassified information. So the US doesn't like to disseminate how it necessarily makes a lot of things. So how is India figuring it out? Well, they are. I mean, it's the largest country on earth in terms of population. You're
Yep.
larger than China now.
Yes.
Uh, good. Uh, and so you have an incredibly high education level with so many of the people and great universities. People, I don't think not everybody realizes how good a lot of the universities are in India. I mean, they're top notch. And so you're inventing things yourself. And that's what I'd like to see. Um, yeah.
That that actually, makes our day. And to our listeners who would hear this, definitely, they would love to, and uh, hear this thing. And yes, doctorate, manifest that. Everything is about manifestation nowadays. You'll definitely get there, and you'll definitely come to India, and I'll be the first person, to take you around.
Oh, I love it. I love it very much.
Uh, All right. So, Dr. Ed, before we actually conclude our podcast segment, let's take a lighter route. All this while I was completely, bombarding you with the questions about your journey, about material science, about carbon composite, and every other thing. So now in this rapid fire round, we're going to go into a very lighter route, talking about your likes and interests. So, Dr. Ed, are you, ready with the first question of the rapid fire round then?
I guess so.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. So yeah. So Dr. Ed, the first question to you. So what is your favorite hobby?
Well, I love to cook. I love to write.
Okay.
My minor as a undergraduate was in English. So I majored in engineering, minored in English. So I just love writing, and I love to write about things that are non-technical as well as technical.
Okay.
Um, you know,
That's a pretty interesting crossover. Okay. So, Dr. Ed, since I'm of the Indian origin and I come from India, I'm pretty keen to ask you this question. Like, what is your favorite Indian food that you always like to try?
um, one of the foods that I was exposed to, and I think you even told me the name of it,
Right.
but it's a type of dish that's rice in grape leaves, and it's just really wonderful food.
It's biryani.
What?
Biryani is the delicacy of Hyderabad.
Oh, okay. Well, it was one of my aunt's favorite things,
Yeah.
because she had lived for 20 years in Hyderabad when she was young.
Okay.
So,
All right. That's a unique choice. Once you come to Hyderabad, I'll definitely take you over and feast you with some biryani for sure. All
very
right.
good.
Yeah. All right, Dr. Ed, like now talking, I asked you about, the Indian food. Now I'm pretty keen to ask you this. Like, what is your comfort food that you always like to try?
Well, um, I love Thai food. So
Okay.
massaman beef and jade curry, and I like Thai food a lot.
Hmm.
I don't know if that would be called comfort food. It's pretty
It can
spicy,
be.
but I love spicy food. So, you know, um, yeah.
Nice. That's interesting. So, what is your favorite holiday destination of all time?
Uh, well, it used to be Paris. Um, I love history and architecture, and of course, the French are renowned for their cuisine. I love French cooking. That's one of my favorite places to go.
To Paris. That's a pretty
Yeah.
artistic place. I've never been there yet, but would love to go there soon.
It's a beautiful city. It's a shame what the French have done to their country. Uh,
Mhm.
you know, but anyway, but yeah, I spent a summer in Paris in 1987 and lived there and studied at the university. I was a grad student, and I
Oh,
just
okay.
fell in love with the place. And my aunt and uncle also lived there. The same aunt who many decades before had lived in your neck of the woods, in your neighborhood in Hyderabad.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, that was a delight. I love Paris, and I didn't find the Parisians to be difficult at all. A lot of people, oh, the Parisians are so snooty. They're so blah blah blah. No, they're not. They're perfectly fine. Uh,
They're good. They're pretty much fine because I've done a lot of podcasts with many French people and with Parisian people as well, and they're pretty much good.
yeah, they're very nice. They just get upset with people who come to their city and disrespect them.
Yep,
And,
that is
and
true.
that's why people have bad experiences. Well, they disrespected them. As long as you treat them with respect, which they deserve, then you'll
Hmm.
be fine.
Absolutely. That's the right word. The final question to you, Dr. Ed. So, Dr. Ed, what was the last song that you have heard?
Oh, last song that I heard. Well, I was just listening yesterday to Something in the Air Tonight. Phil Collins.
Phil Collins,
It's
yeah.
it's from
Hmm.
40 some odd years ago. It was
Hmm.
Uh,
Nice. That's a pretty good choice, Dr. Ed. So,
yeah.
Dr. Ed, thank you so much for again once again taking time from your busy schedule and being part of my podcast initiative. Each and every insight shared by you, pertaining to the material science space and everything, talking, especially, I was blown by the thing, talking about carbon composite technology, that diamond technology that's pretty much rare. And also the patent thing that you have created really, really blew me off. So I just had a lovely conversation with you. So thank you so much once again.
Okay. Thank you so much. It's been great being on your podcast, and I hope this is helpful to your audience and viewers, and really enjoyed it. And thank you so much for the opportunity.
Yep. Thank you, Dr. Ed, once again. So, listeners, so on this note, this is your host, Akhil Lavluri, signing off. We would be back with another podcast episode with another eminent industry leader very soon. Till then, keep listening. Goodbye, stay tuned, and au revoir. Thank you.